Here's the brutal truth nobody wants to admit. When an avoidant texts you after silence, they're rarely missing you. They're missing the control they used to have over your emotions. That "hey, I've been thinking about you." It's not a peace offering, it's a test, a quiet experiment to measure your healing. They want to know, do you still flinch when their name appears? Do you still pause, reread the message, feel that familiar sting in your chest? Because that reaction, that hesitation, is their proof that they still matter. It's not love they're seeking, it's reassurance. They want to confirm that, even after silence, your world still tilts around them. And that's where 99% of people fail. They respond from their wound, not from their worth. They rush to reply because they mistake crumbs for closure. They hand back their emotional power in the exact moment they were about to reclaim it. But not you, not this time. Because once you understand the psychology behind that message, you stop reacting and you start observing. You realize the text isn't connection, it's control. And your job isn't to respond, it's to reclaim your peace. So in this breakdown I'll show you exactly what's happening in their mind, what you should feel instead of reacting, and exactly what to say, and when to say nothing at all, and how a single calm strategic response, or complete silence, can destroy their illusion of control forever. Because sometimes the most brutal reply is the one they never receive. Before we move on, let's understand what psychology says about this moment, so you can decode every move logically, and react from clarity, not emotion. According to attachment theory, an avoidant silence isn't peace, it's control. When you stop chasing, they feel a subtle loss of power. Your absence creates emotional tension in their mind, and instead of processing that loss, they test whether the door is still open. Psychologically, this is called a control check, a subconscious move to confirm they still have emotional access to you. They don't text because they miss you, they text because they miss the reaction you used to give. It's not affection, it's reassurance. It's their ego whispering, "Do I still matter?" And when you respond too quickly, that anxiety disappears, not because they found love again, but because they found control again. This is how most people lose the power they earned through silence. They mistake a test for closure, a trigger for truth, and in doing so, they give the avoidant exactly what they came for: validation. But once you see this pattern clearly, you stop responding emotionally and start responding intelligently. What most people do wrong. The biggest mistake people make when an avoidant finally reaches out is thinking this means something. They see that one text, "Hey, how have you been?" and their heart jumps to hope instead of truth. They start believing the silence changed something, that maybe this time will be different, that maybe the love finally woke them up. But that belief is the trap. Here's the hard truth. Most people fail this test, not because they're weak, but because they care. When that message finally appears after weeks or months of silence, "Hey, just checking in," or "I miss talking to you," your mind says don't reply, but your heart whispers, maybe they've changed. And that whisper is exactly where the trap begins. Because you don't respond for validation, you respond for closure. You think replying will bring clarity, but in reality, it reopens the same emotional loop you were finally breaking free from. This is the first mistake, confusing their return with progress. You assume silence made them realize something, but avoidants rarely return because they've grown. They return because they felt the loss of your attention. When you reply, you feed that loss. You remind them that the power they once had over your emotions still exists. And in that instant, their ego exhales in relief, not because they love you, but because control has been restored. Think about it. They text you after ignoring your messages, and your heart still skips a beat. You craft the perfect reply, not too long, not too short. You check your phone every few minutes. You analyze every word they send. That's not communication, that's conditioning. Your brain is back in survival mode, trying to earn connection from someone who thrives on distance. Second mistake, over-explaining. You write messages like, "I'm glad you reached out, I was just confused about what happened," or "I still care, I just didn't know if you wanted space." You think you're expressing emotion, but to an avoidant, it sounds like reassurance. They don't hear your pain, they hear power. Your vulnerability becomes their confirmation. They still want me, I still matter. Third mistake, pretending you're fine. You reply casually, "Hey, all good here," you thinking detachment will protect you. But energy doesn't lie, they can sense when you're pretending, and even that pretense feeds their ego, because if you're still acting calm for them, you're still performing for their validation. Fourth mistake, expecting consistency after reappearance. You take one text as a sign of change, forgetting how patterns repeat. So when they vanish again, you blame yourself instead of the cycle. You tell yourself, maybe I said something wrong, but in truth, they just came to refill their ego, and left when it was full again. And that's the invisible exchange most people never see. You give emotional energy, they take emotional control. You give vulnerability, they take reassurance. You give attention, they take validation, all without saying a word. The avoidant doesn't need to manipulate you, they just need to text you, because every time you respond, you confirm that even after all the silence, they still have power, and that's when it hits you, the realization most people avoid facing: I wasn't being kind, I was keeping their ego alive. When that sudden message comes after weeks or months of silence, most people panic. You want to look calm, but your chest tightens. Your mind says don't reply, your heart says maybe this time it's real. But here's the truth, this is not a moment to react, it's a moment to lead, because whoever stays emotionally grounded here wins the power dynamic. Avoidants don't reach out to reconnect, they reach out to reconfirm they still can. So your response must do the opposite. Show that access to you is no longer free. Let's break it down. Here's what to do, and why it works. 1. The delayed response. When that message arrives, don't reply immediately. Wait hours, maybe even a day. I know it's tempting to prove you've moved on by replying maturely, but real maturity isn't about instant reactions, it's about emotional regulation. When you delay, the avoidant starts feeling what they made you feel for weeks: uncertainty. They'll wonder, did I lose them? Are they done? That's discomfort they're not used to sitting in. Avoidants thrive when they feel you're emotionally available. Your silence breaks that pattern. It tells them without words, you don't control the timing anymore. That's not manipulation, that's balance being restored. 2. The neutral acknowledgement. When you finally decide to reply, keep it calm and factual. Something simple like, hey, I'm doing well, hope you're okay too. That's it. No warmth, no story, no nostalgia. When you respond like this, the avoidance brain short-circuits a little, because they were expecting either anger or emotional relief, not balance. They'll reread it, searching for a hidden tone, but they'll find nothing to grab onto. And that's the power of neutrality. It starves their need for control while maintaining your self-respect. You're not being cold, you're being centered, and that calmness will bother them far more than silence ever could. 3. The boundary line now. If their message turns emotional or nostalgic, miss you, been thinking a lot lately, you reply once, clearly and respectfully. I appreciate you reaching out, but I'm in a different space now. This one hits deep, because for the first time, they can't argue with it. It's final, but graceful. You're not blaming, begging, or explaining. When you set that kind of boundary, you shift the energy from reaction to resolution. They realize your emotional doors aren't revolving anymore. That calm detachment unsettles them, because avoidants are addicted to open loops. You just closed one, permanently. 4. The strategic silence. And sometimes, the most powerful move is no reply at all. That's not coldness, that's self-respect in motion. When you stay silent, they feel something they rarely confront: the weight of their own choices. They check their phone, they wait, they think, maybe I pushed too far, and for the first time, they sit in the very silence they used to weaponize. Avoidants don't crumble when you fight back, they crumble when your absence no longer needs to speak for you. Because the most brutal reply isn't anger, it's composure. It's not silence as punishment, it's silence as power. And when you master that balance, you don't just win the interaction, you reclaim your peace. When you finally stop reacting, something powerful happens. You see the truth that was always there, hidden beneath the chaos. You realize it was never about their text, it was about your growth. Because the moment you chose silence over reaction, peace over panic, you stopped being controlled by the version of you that chased love just to feel seen. You start understanding that avoidants don't come back for love, they come back for reassurance. And when you don't give it, the spell breaks. That's when the real healing begins, not because they changed, but because you finally did. You learn that closure isn't something they can give you, it's something you create by refusing to reopen old wounds. And in that calm, detached silence, you find something deeper than revenge, you find freedom, because the goal was never to destroy them, it was to outgrow them, and when you do, their silence stops hurting, and your peace finally speaks louder.